Junnet.
Thank you, Chairman and Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to start by saying that and telling the nominee that I think, Mr. Nominee, the issue now that at hand that you need to explain to the vetting committee is that you are getting into a ministry that has a very high, huge pending bill that has no money essential for development of new roads. You need to tell us how you are going to turn around that. What vision, what do you think you will do that will turn around that? That's number one. And number two, in November 2023, no, I mean in 25th of August 2023, during your tenure as Cabinet Secretary for Energy and Petroleum, the country experienced a national grid failure, you remember? And it affected many places, including the airport, including homes, hospitals, everywhere. And the then Cabinet Secretary for Roads and Transport took some decisions and reshuffled people at the airport and sacked some people. But on your side, nothing happened. What could be the reason, and what could have caused the disruption, or what could have caused the grid to collapse? And another thing I wanted to ask you is, you know, we are formed a new cabinet. We are vetting 22 members of parliament, members of the cabinet. And this is a broad-based government, as has been said by the president himself. But the effect of broad-based also is to have development in every part of the country. This country has suffered enough in the sense that there's skewed way of doing road constructions in the country. There are places like my neighbor here in Kikuyu, there is no road remaining, unless now we want to put overhead and overpasses and underground passes. And there are places where still there are issues of roads. What criteria will you come up with?
Mr. Speaker, you need to protect me from my colleague. He can't say there are no roads remaining in Kikuyu when there are actually no roads in Kikuyu.
You'll be protected.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Ask your question.
Mr. Speaker, so I was asking, what criteria are you going to come up with so that roads net distribution is done in an equitable and fair manner? Lastly, there was a road that was supposed to be dualed from, I don't know, here, Kabete, or somewhere in Nairobi here, all the way to Rironi, all the way to Mount Summit Junction. And that is where, as we go, every weekend, what is the status? There was an agreement with the French government, but it has never taken off. So, Mr. Nominee, those 4 issues, if you explain.
Yes, Davis.
Then you may get a good report from me.
Very quickly, for the unfortunate blackouts in the network, Chair, I do note we have had a number of blackouts which we have addressed and categorized into quick solution in short term, mid term, and long term. Whereas we have generated enough power because it is done by the private sector or off-government balance sheet. And the energy sector is totally unbundled in terms of generators, transmission, and offtake, or what you call the buyer market in KPLC. The transmission network is financed by the exchequer, through the exchequer. And with the inadequate financing of the transmission network, most of the challenges that we saw in the blackout was transmission in nature. Chair, we have 2 very specific challenges in Kisumu, Moroni, Chemosit, a network which links to Bomet, through Kigati to Awendo, Homa Bay and Awendo. And that transmission network gets overloaded. When a system is overloaded, it drips to secure itself, just like the circuit breakers in our house. When it sends a fault, it will drip. So the drip, due to an overload, became a challenge. We have seen secured funding to get an alternative routing to get more power from Olkaria through Narok, Bomet, Awendo, and Homa Bay. So that the contractor will be on site shortly. We got a funding from Africa Development Bank and address that challenge. The other challenge that has been dripping the country, and where we occasionally, for those of us who live in that region, do pull out feeders. Pulling out a feeder is load shedding. And so a few areas would be load shedding to ensure that it doesn't drip the whole country while we build this network very quickly. We've had a challenge in Takwel, a place called Ortum, Kitale, where we did put some 3 solar plants called Alten, Selenkei, and what happened is those solar plants caused a network constraint. And so we've not been dispatching Takwel because of the take-or-pay challenge of delivery of power into the system. Chair, that has since been resolved. We have gotten the transformers into Otum. Otum is in some place in West Pokot there, and we've gotten the transformer to Kitale. And the network constraint or the congestion of having to transmit more power through a line has been resolved. We are also working on something called to be able to manage voltage stabilization. We are working on STATCOMs on the Ethiopia-Kenya line to be able to address the voltages so that we do not have this intermittence and a network disturbance which causes a blackout. And so those are being addressed. Unfortunately, they belong to Ketraco where they are addressed through the balance sheet, but that is being addressed, Chair. With regard to...
Point of order, Chairman.
Yes, Mary.
I have not heard him mention Busia and Kakamega because blackouts cut across. Actually, you cannot even put a business in Busia because you persistent blackout. So mention something about Busia and Kakamega and Bungoma.
Allow me, Chair.
Yes, Chirchir.
Chair, I should have possibly said west of Kenya.
Call me Speaker or Chairman, not
Chairman,
Chair.
Chairman, yes. This challenge is really characteristic of most of west of Kenya. You know, most of the generation is in the Seven Forks.
It's a nightmare.
It's a nightmare. Yeah. But with the construction of the line to carry power from Olkaria direct to west of Kenya, a very good capacity line, that problem will be a thing of the past. That's being
when
done.
Will it be ready?
Another 18 months, but what we are currently doing, we have got mitigation. We've built a line from Sondu through Awendo to be able to deload Chemosit, Kigati. So there's a lot of work being done. And let me say this, Chair.
He's sitting on a chair.
I'm sitting on a chair. I'm not a chair.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Let me say this.
Yes.
Since I came to the Ministry of Energy and Petroleum, we've been working on the critical projects which had been started rather than the appetite of starting new projects. These have been historical challenges. We are sorting them. Whoever comes, my colleague who comes to the office, there are ongoing projects as we speak today. We are accelerating them because of that challenge. In fact, to put lives to the number of load shedding, occasionally, on a day-to-day basis, we are load shedding up to 140 customers to be able to remove the overload on the line. So conscious of that, including hospitals, including industries, factories, the tea factories. Conscious of that, Chair, we are working around the clock to ensure that we deliver this in the shortest possible time.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker. I'm not asking a question, but Mr. Speaker, looking at the time, only 3 people have asked questions, and we're almost an hour. So if the nominee, please, could just be short and precise.
Going forward, nominee, when you ask a question, just answer it. Are you selling Kenya Airways? No. Are you pumping in more money? Yes or no. Then we make progress. Let me now start from this side.
Why don't I finish the Junnet? And I'll just 30 seconds. Rironi Molo was concession to the French company. I think the pricing, again, is what I called a term sheet. We'll relook at that and be able to bring the cost right, possibly do what we must do to deload or congest that road. It's a matter of priority to be able to move traffic to west of Kenya. The road construction, what criteria will we use? Chairman, I introduced my formative life in traffic engineering, and we'll need to do more of really ensuring we look at traffic, we look at opening new new areas for economic purposes. Think about the Lapset. It is a new development corridor. You may not need traffic to open Lapset because we need to shift development to a new development corridor. And so we'll use all those kind of clustered frameworks to be able to open this country, working with the members of parliament, like I've worked with most of you on the last mile, to be able to open this country. Thank you.
Good. Let me start from Robert. Then we go to Mary, Amisi, Mule, then we come back this side.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
And please ask one question each. Don't and make no preamble to your questions.
Speaker, there are very critical things I needed to know from the nominee. So first and foremost, the road maintenance levy that was introduced recently from 18 shillings to 25 shillings by EPRA was done, in my opinion, without reference to the National Assembly. And despite also the fact that Kenyans, when there was public participation, they said no. I would like to hear your opinion about that. And there's some clarity on the G2G deal. Why was National Oil Corporation of Kenya involved? Because there is a belief that it wasn't. And then on the same deal, when you say that you're paying for fuel in Kenyan shillings, I want clarity because I am very well aware that Kenyan shillings are not legal tender outside this country, outside the region. So how is it that you are able to pay for, because that has always been the comment, that we are paying for fuel in Kenyan shillings. How would UAE or other countries out there receive Kenyan shillings as legal tender? And finally, on the transport sector, which you're being dominated to, how will you deal with the three critical things? One, road safety. Two, the menace of traffic police on the roads. And finally, of course, the high cost of transportation. Thank you, Chairman.
Swali moja.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Speaker. Speaker, I would like to ask Davis, our nominee, this one question. The north of Kenya, that is Malindi, Tana River, Lamu, those areas are very productive, but the productivity has been hindered because of the lack of the airport in Malindi, a good airport. This has been a question that every government has not wanted to face, that we must, Malindi is decaying because of the lack of the airport. Over $100 billion investments in Malindi, they are coming down because of the lack of the airport. You're a clever man, that I know because I've worked with you before, and I want to declare my interest. What will you do really to solve this problem of the airport? Secondly, the open sky question. We are protective of KQ, yes. But again, we also need to open this country to more investment by allowing other airlines to come in. If Ethiopian airline can fly to tourists from Addis Ababa to Nairobi, then the airport, the tourist is stranded there waiting for Jumbo Jet to fly to Malindi at 7 in the evening, and they arrived at 7 in the morning. Why would you do that and kill tourism just because we want to protect KQ? What will you do to solve these two key legendary issues, the Malindi Airport and the open sky policy in this country? Thank you.
Answer those three questions, two from Robert, one from...
Chairman, the issue of road maintenance levy, which granted has done very well because you will notice that our highways are very well maintained, is a good thing in terms of the ratio that I've seen on how it gets to Kena, Kura for the urban and Kera. And we'll need to look at whether we need to redimension and get some savings. Are we over-providing? Are those percentage distribution frameworks supporting? Because whereas the road development does not have any revenue because we rely on the exchequer support, can we be able to, in line with what I said earlier, having to get more of off-balance sheet road development in an area where we'll be together looking at a policy on tolling, road tolling, so that you pay as you use. You see the expressway is fairly popular, and yet people are willing to pay today rather than really pay when they are not using. So we look at that together, honorable members. Ongoing, we will really because of the 7 shillings additional that was, like you said, hurriedly, without coming to the House. We'll need to look at that together. I think it's topical. I don't know whether it is in court as we speak. But it's an area where if we socialize Kenyans, like I said, from the word go, and understood the need to be able to open up this country for economic development, it's one thing that could help us in working on securitization and really coming into your constituency in Eastern Province and opening up that region for development. So we look at that together because it's a very topical issue as we speak today. NOC wasn't considered because NOC was not able to play in this space. The space belonged to the international oil marketing companies who are able to work with AAA or investment grade banks to be able to give us products on deferred LCs for 6 months. At the time when we did this, NOC has been having a very big challenge, and in fact we are commercializing NOC at the moment, Mr. Speaker. It ran itself into a problem when they brought 2 cargoes that disappeared in the high seas in 2011, and they have been crumbling with a debt of 8 billion, and therefore, Chair, it's when you really try to really pick up what you cannot manage. So the international oil marketing companies were allowed to appoint local OMCs companies who had a relationship or accounts with them to be able to offtake the products in Kenya, because the trade finance is a bit of a complex area, because this is really employing trade finance to be able to take products today and pay 6 months later. Pay in Kenya shillings today. In the meantime, because the dollar accumulation was very tight, buy the dollars in a structured form where KCB, Standard Chartered are the only people going to the market through central bank, in a very structured way. We had a committee called TRIMCOM, Treasury Risk Investment and Management Committee, which meets every Wednesday. And therefore, we had a very structured way of taking the shillings and going to the market from the 120th day to buy in a structured way, so that we also removed the interbank rate, which had gone off completely. So NOC was not included. They could not play in this space. Regarding the final question from
Speaker.
Malindi Airport.
Malindi Airport.
How
Yes.
did the cargo disappear? That is the question. The dollar. That's what he's asking the chairman.
Let me 1, 2.
Let me mention that. Let me come to that. The traffic, the road safety, traffic issues, and high cost of transportation is something with the technology today. Let me just say, I'm aware that technology is being employed to be able to have an intelligent system with cameras on the road, with an electronic wallet that gives you point for good driving, removes point, and be able to eventually even cancel, with a kind of fine system that can be operated in this electronic space. We should be able to address. I know there's a project which is already going on. We'll need to review that and confirm. There is an ITS, Intelligent Traffic Management System, which is going to be addressing offenders at junctions and things like that. We'll look at that together and implement that quickly. Road transportation or transportation then becomes expensive because of the challenges inherent from the cost of fuel, the cost of congestion, and then so on and so forth. Traffic management becomes very important today, where even with Google Maps, you are able to choose the route without traffic. There is no reason why, when I'm coming from Bomet, Honorable Speaker, I have to drive into a dead traffic end and slip over in my Mayu escarpment, when I could have actually, because of traffic management technology, just go out through Naivasha and get to Nairobi in 2 hours, and instead end up sleeping in the escarpment, and yet the technology is there today. So we'll implement those aspects of traffic management together. Malindi, Mheshimiwa Owen, I know Malindi is passionate. It's a tourist destination. We'll need to sit down and work together and see, like, from a traffic perspective, tourists would rather be flying than going on that narrow road into Malindi. And there's no reason why we cannot sit together quickly and dimension upgrade of Malindi and be able to attract more traffic. But more importantly, look at how commercial that should be, so that we do not get into the kind of bending bills that we talk about. Open sky question vis-a-vis the reciprocal requirement as per regulations. It's something we need to look at together. I do agree with you, but it's happening. It's bound to be happening at a very hard time for KQ when they are struggling. So let's see, do we push KQ to improve as we open our skies with those reciprocal arrangements? Because even if we did a reciprocal arrangement and our flights to those destinations are the Embraer, which are not able, they don't have the belly staff to carry enough luggage. So we really need to work very quickly to see whether we need KQ to come up, and I think we do, and be able to work on the open sky policy with, more importantly, the reciprocal arrangements. Speaker, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Honour Davis, you've told us about your attempts to equalize provision of electricity in the country, and especially through the last mile. That's only 2 years, so it stands to be seen whether really there is anything feasible in that area. But now you go to roads. And as stated, there's great inequality in terms of road network in the country, and especially with what are known as stored projects, the stored roads. If I give you an example of Tharaka Nithi County, we have 3 roads started 10 years ago in 2014, and up to now we are still grappling with their completion. Will it be your policy that you will actually dedicate resources as a matter of urgency to completion of stored roads and projects so that at least the network can, to some extent, be equalized?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is Abdul Rahim Daud, MP for North Menti, and I want to say I'm in the Committee of Transport, so I won't ask him transport questions. CS nominee, while you were in the energy sector, energy ministry, did you look at the fuel, the one we were told by Honorable Kiraito during his time as minister, that we had oil in Turkana? And if you did, why aren't we utilizing the refinery we had in Mombasa so that at least fuel could be cheaper than what it is right now? Because we are at the mercy of the big oil operators. Lastly, regarding, I don't know if I will ask, roads, they are the Mau Mau roads, you have heard of them. But those Mau Mau roads do not pass through the whole of central Kenya. It is just a portion of central Kenya. Will you think of extending it to the other part, Mount Kenya East as well? Because we do not have the Mau Mau roads. And we had Mau Mau even in Meru, Tharaka Nithi, and Embu. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Let me start with George Murungaru regarding the North Imenti and the concern of stalled projects in Tharaka Nithi. We do not have an option. We don't have an option. We've signed contracts. The interest will be piling. The bending bills will be piling. Unless we have a way of exiting, which I think they were considered before they were contracted, we'll have to look for funding solutions. And Chair, like I said, like the G2G, we have to think out of the box. Chairman.
Get favor from this committee, and you are recommended to be appointed to that ministry. What plans do you have to tackle pending bills, other than complain about pending bills? I think that is what members want you to tell us. What innovative ideas do you have when you get into office, if you get there, to get pending bills out of the way and start embarking on new projects or stalled projects?
Let me, and very fluid, like David Kosing did raise, we need to look at securitization of the little revenues that we have in the road maintenance levy. Number two, why I said it's very fluid, depending on whether we are able to pull through the debate of the additional, that could be a very good area to fully securitize. If we securitize 7 shillings, and which works to 31 billion annually, and if you were to securitize that for like 10 years, that would be 310 billion. We can do a bullet payment on a pricing of 300 against maybe 250 billion because of the cost of money, and be able to address that challenge today. But again, like I said, it is fluid. We need to sit down together and look at the options. There'll be a number of options that we can look at together. Absolutely. As regarding Rahim's question on electricity, you do know that I had, when sitting in the Ministry of Energy chair, I sat with the county leadership from the various counties in many breakfast meetings, and Rahim happened to have been in the breakfast meeting for. Chair will need to look at how to harmonize the redistribution of resources to address opening. I did write to every member of parliament in May last year, Chair, to look at how many primary schools or public institutions were not electrified in each constituency. With that database, we've been able to allocate money subject to meeting the social obligation of public institutions, so that if you are 100% electrified, Chair, why wouldn't we give more money to Rahim or to George in Tharakanithi to be able to equalize and bring the whole country into an equal footing in terms of electricity or energy for all? We'll do similar frameworks in roads. We'll sit down together and map what we need to do to be able to really push the country forward. As regarding exploration of tallow and the discovery of oil in Kenya, we are at a phase called field development plan. We have a big field development plan that should be coming to Parliament. It is being reviewed by the regulator. Once the regulator reviews, it will go to the minister, and within 30 days, the minister will bring it to Parliament. And what the field development plan does, Mr. Speaker, Chairman, is it looks at moving the concessionaire from exploration to production in line with the production sharing contract. It looks at the financial ability for them to build the system to produce the crude oil. It looks at the technical capacity of that farm. So currently we are reviewing the field development plan, and it will be coming to Parliament in due course to see whether we can move from exploration to production, because there is the risk of, if not properly done, moving the concessionaire and staying in production for the next 10 years. So we are looking at the financial and technical capacity to be able to do that. Refinery becomes an option in terms of bankability of the project as to whether we export crude through a pipeline out of Lamu or Mombasa, or whether we refine. And therefore, that could help us to utilize the refinery in Mombasa that we closed some times back. Mau Mau roads, we can look at that together, Chairman. It is too early, but suddenly we will work to be able to dimension what we need to do together. Thank you.
Mary.
Thank you, Chairman. Nominee, in the collapsed finance bill, there was an allocation of 50 million for electricity distribution, 50 million for each constituency. I'm wondering whether you're going to carry that approach along with you to the Ministry of Transport, so that we have that equitable distribution of resources, so that if you decide it is 50 kilometers per county, we all benefit from 50 kilometers per county, so that regions like Busia can also get a road, a tarmac road, from Butula all the way to Amukura and Teso South, and other counties. Secondly, Nairobi Expressway was constructed to ease congestion along the highway. But sometime in January, the toll charges were increased. this defeats the purpose for which it was intended. Because now how do you reap from, how do you encourage people to use the highway and also benefit from economies of scale? What are your thoughts on the kind of charges that are being levied on the expressway? Thank you.
Amisi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You asked for one question, but I beg you, give me two, because the last one is important for me. The first,
start with the important one.
The very, very important one, Mr. Speaker, is that I come from a constituency that do not have even a single kilometer of road of bitumen standard, and it has been like that since time immemorial. Mostly they say because it has been represented by opposition leaders, but I doubt. 20 months ago, we were here with the predecessor of this ministry. And I did ask him the same question, and he said that in 100 days, I will see miracles. Now it's 20 months down the line. I want to ask you, when do I expect to see at least a kilometer of bitumen standard in my constituency? And it's not just my constituency, Mr. Speaker. It is a program that needs to check that there is equal distribution of road network across the country, irrespective of where the region falls, whether it's in opposition or in the government. But there must be a clear national rationalization program of all constituencies, so that if a kilometer is built in Mombasa, there is another kilometer built in Kitale. We must have that, so that the constituents don't think that it is a failure of a member of parliament, when it is actually the failure of proper program of the ministry. And then the question I wanted to ask, Mr. Speaker, is that our roads and infrastructure are majorly World Bank funded, and IMF, International Monetary Fund. Mr. Speaker, World Bank were financial institutions that started to reconstruct Europe after the war on Europe, after the World War II. There were proper development in Europe before. The purpose of World Bank was to reconstruct Europe after the World War II, including Japan and other Asian countries. Now, it is 80 years since the World War II ended. We are still reconstructing. The purpose of that World Bank is not commensurate to the issues of the global South. In this country, we've never had war, whether it's local, global, even the Mau Mau did not destroy any road. We cannot talk about a fund that used to reconstruct, coming to develop an underdevelopment. So, Minister, you are going to a ministry that is heavily, we know the roads network is capital intensive, but you are going to a ministry that is going to be heavily dependent on the Bretton Woods institutions, whose purpose of establishment is completely different for a developmental path of our country. Do you have any policies of change that will ensure that this country does not continuously depend on external funding, loans that are crippling our economy, loans that we are continuously at the yoke of external loans? Which policies are you going to depend on them? World Bank, number one, and the IMF, or you are going to change? And in which way are you going to change?
Yes, nominee.
Let me start with Honorable Mary Emase's question on, yes, if we make it brief, let me just answer yes, we'll do some equitable distribution of resources. Maybe
that's good enough.
We'll do that.
Yes.
And I think that really answers Kalip Hamisi's question, Honorable Kalip, for Saboti. The Bank of Reconstruction being what it is today. The
point of order, Mr. Speaker. That's how I was answered by the predecessor. I don't want to fall into the same. I just ask, do you have any rationalization program that will ensure, not just Saboti, that every part of this country has an equal distribution of road network, so that Saboti will also benefit?
Thank you, Chair. I was not going to make the 30 days promise to Mheshimiwa, but I was certainly going to, like I said, in respect to the answer to Mary Emase Mheshimiwa, that we'll try to work together to see equitable distribution of resources, look at how to open up this country economically because of ensuring that we need to get the products to market. But more importantly, like I said earlier, what are the alternative funding options? I did make my opening remarks that we are doing our best in energy to get power to get into every corner of this country. And we are using a lot of off-balance sheet we are not getting money from the National Treasury. So to the extent that we today are having an unfunded commitment of about $1 billion, we'll need to sit together to be able to look at the resources that come out of Treasury. Are we going to get it to the Ministry of Roads or State Department of Roads as printed estimates, or are we going to work together to equitably ensure that those printed estimates do cover every part of the country? Mheshimiwa Hamisi, I will really want to be a player in sitting down with all the honorable members to ensure equitable distribution. And like you said, what are the options of funding roads? We'll look at that together, more importantly, to ensure that we don't over-rely on the Bank of Reconstruction after the World War. We do have other options.
Mukami.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. There is a...
Chairman.
Okay. Okay.
Honorable
Okay.
Speaker, a point of
thank you.
information.
Yes,
Honorable Speaker, allow me to solve this issue of chair and the chairman. And if you go to the dictionary, it actually says that one, as a noun, a separate seat for one person. Secondly, as a verb, a person in charge of a meeting.
That I am not a chair. Go on, Mukami.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Yes.
Honorable Waziri, there is a concern from the local contractors. They have raised concern about being overlooked in the awarding of contracts in the roads and transport sector, with the preference often shown for foreign contractors. This trade results in the repatriation of earnings. That means those contractors, the foreign contractors we are giving business here, they are not banking that money here in this country. What specific measures would you introduce to encourage the participation of local contractors and ensure they have a fair chance in the contract award process? Additionally, how will these measures help retain money within the country to boost our economy? Thank you.
Nishi, be like your neighbor, one question.
Chairman, I have two questions. One is a very short one because it is an ongoing problem which I've just witnessed in my constituency and other constituencies.
But Chairman, I don't think it's fair. When you say one question, other people are asking two questions.
I'm going to stop her after one.
Thank you,
Chairman. I've seen my colleague here, they have asked two questions. Dawood, Emase, Amisi, yeah. Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, my first question on the LAPSET project. This project has been a milestone from the last regime and even the current regime. And to me, this is a project where can be a game changer in terms of our economy, be it locally or internationally. Billions of shillings have been consumed, be it for compensation and even building of the port. Currently, what is the status in terms of operationalization in the LAPSET corridor? Two, what unique approaches are you going to do to ensure that we fully realize operationalization of this port of Lamu? My second question, on the same breath, do you have any specific programs you intend to employ to ensure that you create employment to our youth? Because this has been a thorn issue. In fact, even His Excellency the President has been talking about it, that we need to have a national conversation and we address the issue of unemployment, especially to our youth. Lastly, but not least, it is on the issue of duplication of road works among three entities, the county government, the Kura, and Kera. In most of cases, there are scenarios whereby a road has been built by the county government, Kura is doing some repair and maintenance, Kera is also doing some repair and maintenance, and you don't know which fund it's been lost just in the middle of that. So we need to have classification, a proper classification of roads, so that we know this road belongs to county government, and these other roads belong to, they're under the entity of Kera, Kura, and Kenha. There is a lot of duplication, especially Kura and county government. For Kenha, I think it's okay. For Kera, it's somewhat okay, but Kura and county government. Thank you.
Nominee, you know you are not a minister for roads yet, so you are only giving your futuristic plans if you get there.
Thank you again, Honorable Speaker, Chairman. The question from Mukami regarding LAPSET and the equal opportunities for employment of the youth. You know, Chair, we've done something. Chairman, we've done something in the procurement where we did deliberate policy to be able to allow the youth and women PWDs at 30%. It's a question of implementation, but we need to have a deliberate policy to ensure that our local companies are really having a stake in building over roads. We'll need to work together to look at that policy to ensure that there is a fair way of ensuring that we are able to build our companies so that in the years to come, we should be like other countries where we are even exporting contractors to other destinations to build infrastructure. Regarding employment for the youth, I think it's an important area where if we don't address the question of the youth, it's a time bomb waiting to happen, and it's already happening. So we need to work very closely together to ensure that we do have the kind of initiatives that we have seen before, where we had, for example, Kasi Mitaani, deliberate policy for the foreign contractors. When they come in, they are not the ones operating those machines, because just to say, Chairman, in Kengen or GDC, we do the drilling of those steam wells. We build power plants with Kenyans. It cannot be that when contractors come to build our roads, even the operators are of foreign, whatever, to be able to employ our youths. We need to address that. So we need a deliberate policy to ensure that we are able to employ our youths. The opening up of the infrastructure in the SEZs, which is one area where we need to work very quickly. We are opening Dongokundu. It's a lot of work from roads and transport. We are going to be opening all those, as he said, we need to deliberately work quickly in those various areas, including the LAPSET corridor, just to marry the question of Mukami and Mishimbogo, that LAPSET is a new development corridor, just like Mombasa all the way to Kisumu. The developments are about 50 kilometers on either side of the road. When we really move quickly, it's in the interest of the country to open that corridor to support South Sudan, to support Ethiopia, to support our oil exports, to support what we need to do to open a new development corridor and possibly reduce the cost of land around the 50 kilometers on either side of the northern corridor that is currently so congested. So the question of youth is a central aspect in really ensuring what the economic advisors have basically said. Can we do more of capital-intensive investment, or do we do more of what would be labor-intensive investments? It's a question of how do we employ our capital? Do we employ capital to create jobs, or do we employ capital to get big returns, because the owners of capital basically just want to get return and they don't care about creating jobs for our youth? So we look at those policies, Mheshimiwa, to ensure that we do really address the challenge of the youth. Lamu would certainly be a new city as soon as we open LAPSET because of that destination in terms of the port and the challenge that we have today. We have 3 ports which have been built, so much money sunk there, we need that port to be functioning. I know we only used it the other day to ship the fertilizer. We have used it again to ship the cattle to the Middle East. We need to quickly work together to see how that port can return on the investment that has been put on that. Kura, Kera, and Kena is something we look at together. Are there duplication of roles? I think in the 47 parastatals that was supposed to be, we are seriously going to be looking, once confirmed, at where there are duplication, we can be able to hem in and cut cost. Thank you, Chairman.
Chirchir. Yes, Mukami.
Chairman.
Yes.
Waziri, you've not answered the measures you are going to take to make sure that the foreign contractors, they are going to retain the money in our country instead of taking their money in their country. Thank you. Out of the country.
Hold that, Shuria.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Speaker. Nominee Waziri Chirchir. My question is on what informs road agents, especially Kura and Kenha. I ask this with the knowledge that damaged roads in NEP counties in recent floods were unattended for months, hindering mobility of people and critical goods and services, while in other parts restoration was immediate. If approved, would you be able to do the same? God forbid, we don't want it to flood again and get our roads damaged, but what would you do differently to attend to them emergencies? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Very good. You should all be like Churia. Yes, Razo.
Shuria. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Mr. Chirchir, I think listening to you, personally, I feel that sessional paper number 10 of 1965 is alive and it is likely to be refined. Why am I saying this? There are constituencies without a kilometer of tarmac road in Kenya. While when we drive around, there are constituencies with almost 70–80% of very well-paved network. Electricity penetration. I think at least majority of the constituencies could be at 30–40%, which is really a plus. So I think you have a big task ahead of you if the House is going to approve your nomination, because road network is everything. It opens up the country. It opens a lot to contribute to the economy of this nation. I have 2 questions. One is on the issue of, yes, I'll ask one question. It is the issue of corruption, particularly in the road sector and also in energy, where the same group of people are the ones who are contractors in one project after the other. If they are not there, the project is not there. So how are you going to deal with that? The other issue is the issue of many towns in the ASAL are still operating on generators. They are not connected to the national grid. It is both expensive and it is also environmentally not friendly because of pollution. Maybe you can say something about that. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Capital flight, how are we going to address the challenge of capital flight? I think there are 2 forms on how we can manage this. One, localize a lot of the employment so that the labor is not foreign, where we have capacity. and as regarding really ensuring that the capital expenditure for the construction materials go to construction, it shouldn't be really that the Kenyan policy will not allow foreign investors to repatriate profit, but to the extent that the employment, the workforce is foreign, that is an area we can work on immediately to ensure that we do retain that and use to spur the economic growth in terms of circulation of that money. Surie Abdi, I think really we're going to sit down and work together as to whether we want printed estimates to come from